Hello and welcome to another episode of Alex Learns htmx. Last time we were on the verge of making some changes, some refactorings in our code to introduce some templates. I also discovered that we could use the state monad to implement our to-do list, which basically means having the state on the client and always sending the state to the server in order to make changes. Now this is just an experimental thing. It doesn't have, I don't think it has a lot of practical applications, but who knows, we'll see. Anyway, I cheated a little bit. I was impatient to see these things working and I didn't have enough energy to record, so I made a few changes in the meantime. Let me show you. First things, I introduced templates, Jinja2 templates in our server-side code. I will show you immediately what this means. Our index file, index.html, is now in the templates folder, and it has the same content. It doesn't have any variables in it. In templates, we also have the other two templates. We have the lists. So the first, when we enter the first time in the application, we will see a list of things, actually a pre-existing, a pre-created list. And this is what you see here, this pre-existing list. Okay. The next thing that we've done is extract another template for one list, and this is the one that has variables in it. So we'll have, for now it's still first list header, first list, so these are kind of, we only have one list, so I didn't bother modeling those, changing those, refactoring. And then we have a for loop for item in to-do list items. It shows the item, and we have a hidden input type that stores the same value as this one. And this happens because when we call add on our list, so the trigger is click. So basically when you click this button, it will make a post call to first list /add, and what it includes is the values of all inputs here, and these inputs are actually using HTML arrays. So this will be a single array that goes to the server as a variable, items array. And basically what we'll do, I will show you in the moment what we do on the server-side code. We recover this, we add a new item to the items list, and then return this whole HTML rendered using the new value of to-do list items. So let's quickly see how this looks like. Oh, sorry. Let me switch to this profile. app.py. All right, let's make this a bit smaller. Let's make this like this. So you see now our code on the server side becomes quite simple. What we have is a route for the default, so for /, and it just renders the template index.html, which is the one that we've seen. We then have the root for /lists. This returns the template for lists.html without any variables. And then we have first list /add, and this does a few things. First of all, converts this to a dictionary. Well, it actually gets the values, converts them to a dictionary, and gets the items array. That's how I figured out how to call this. And then we append a new item to the items array, and we render the template to do list.html, so the one that we've just seen on the left, with variables to do list items equaling this one. So now what's very interesting about this is that the state is stored on the client, and we send the whole state, the whole list, to the server adds a new item, and then we end up with a new item, and we can keep adding now. So actually we can, what we couldn't do before, let's quickly make run. So before we couldn't add multiple items, now we can. And this is quite interesting, right? Yeah. Now, of course, I was saying that this probably doesn't help in practice, because these are stored on the client. So if you close this page, the whole state is lost. Right. So of course we could figure out a way of saving state on the client and then reloading it from the client and sending it to the server. But then the next question is, why would I go through the moves of sending this thing to the server if I can make the same changes on the client side? I mean, if I save things and I can send them to the I can save the current state of the list. I can add a new item of the list on the client. Of course, it's easy to do that in JavaScript. And we'll just have a list, right? Well, of course, we can imagine a few situations. I mean, I could add a new button, save on server, right? And then it will get saved somehow on the server and you can load it from there. Sure, I mean, it's a pattern, you can use it, but at least I don't see an extremely practical use, right? I can see some interesting uses, but not, how can I say, not the most practical ones. Okay. But nonetheless, it's quite fun to try this out. All right. So we were at this point. Our tests, by the way, are still running perfectly. Make test. Let's run the tests. Still getting that resource allocation error. We have to test running. This is great. Let's see the tests really quickly. Test and trend.py. So why do the tests still work? Well, because the tests do not check, for example, the content of the new item that is created. We have test add item to first list. We are only testing the first add. So perhaps it might be a good idea. I mean, we implemented something that is not tested yet, and that thing is that we can add multiple things. So I would rather have also testing that we can add more things, right? So we have this for list add, click. Let's see if we can replicate this for now. First list item, self-assert equal 3. And then run, and remember exclamation mark so that it doesn't it doesn't drop to the console. No, doesn't actually create a new buffer for us. Oh, we have reused, the element reference is stale. Okay, now this is interesting. So I think there's a refresh here that's happening after this. So let's reinitialize the button and quickly try this test again. All right, tests are passing. So what this shows us is that we can run this a number of times. Now, when I look at this test, first of all, I would like to actually commit these tests. So what have we done? Add tests for multiple, for second, add item to the to-do list. Cool. We can also push. Perfect. So now there's a temptation here of doing this in a loop. And honestly, I don't like loops in my tests, except when they are inside of a custom assert, or if we are using some kind of data-driven testing, right? So I wouldn't extract these in a for loop, but we can look at removing some of this duplication in other ways, okay? For now, I mean, I don't like my tests. They have become a bit messy. It's a bit too much here in each of the tests. There was some learning involved, and that's one reason why I don't expect to have perfect tests all the time. But there's also a question of, okay, when is a good time to refactor them? So I will quickly read them again just to see if we can fix anything, but I'm also very careful with this because I'm still learning, so I'm not sure what else I will change in the implementation and how many changes I will need to make. Because once you make some refactoring and remove duplication from your tests, you introduce maybe more abstractions. And when you introduce more abstraction, and if you want to change something, it might very well happen that it's not as easy to change your tests with the implementation, right? But there are a few things that have become quite obvious. One of these is this. We keep navigating to the same place. Now, will we ever navigate to another place? Maybe. I don't think so, though. And for the purpose of this application, most likely not. There is a challenge, however, that I need a driver variable as well. And this would do two things. So perhaps what I can do is to extract this thing. Self.driver.get. And maybe move it into the setup. I don't remember whether setup is for... Yeah, I think setup happens before each test. So if I move this up there, and actually it will have to change a little bit. Self.driver.get this. This will remove some of the duplication, and I should be able to remove it from here and from here. Now I've done 3 changes at the same time, which is not always the best idea. I'm pretty confident that I made them right. Well, let's see. If now the tests are failing, then I will need to go back. But I expect the tests to pass. Right. So we've done this. Now, actually, yes, I know what I can do. But first, let's do some quick commits. Refactor test remove duplication in initial navigation. Cool. All right, let's do a bit of another refactoring. So what I see is that I have some find element, find element, find element. Now, normally the way you do that in, if you want to write Selenium tests, there's an amazing, very good pattern to apply, which is called a page object. So what you do in a page object, you define a class that has these elements defined in that class, and sometimes they refer each other, and then it's very easy whenever you need to do some kind of change. It's very easy to use the page object class and to change inside that, and the page object basically maps to a page. So in a page object, you define it for a page, and you would have the elements from the page that you are using in tests, sometimes even the text and so on. And that removes a lot of this ugly code driver find element by ID something, or this part. Now, I have never used page objects with Selenium in Python. I've used them with Groovy in Spock, which is a very, very good, very nice framework. So we'll have to do a bit of research. Let's quickly see Python Selenium page object, because sometimes there are some specific things that the language offers that you can do. Page object classes, element import, search text element, base page, yeah. Main page search result, and then I would import, okay, locators, separate locator strings. Okay, so I don't quite get how this fits in together, but I guess we can move on and implement some of these things. So we'll have a test, self-driver get, test search, okay. Load the main page, page.main page, assert true, click go, search result, assert true. Okay, so this is a simple test in Selenium. Now page object classes, from elements, from locators, search text element, base page, main page, derived from base page, and this initializes with the driver. I don't understand who initializes the main page. So this thing is okay, and I can understand the locators, you keep them separately, and that's fine. Page elements, and then you have element.py. I don't like these names. Alright, so this actually exposes some lambdas. main page locator. Yeah, man, but how do you use those? So you have page.main page self driver, and then main pages title matches blah blah blah. All right, so we'll do something that's a bit simplified, right? I understand why they want to do those things, but let's do something a bit simpler to start with, and then we'll see. First things first, let's try to create a class. Let's call it homepage. And we want to have, so perhaps we want to have a base page. Yeah. I mean, I only have one page for now. So we can keep it simple. So let's see, I'd like to move some of these things here. Okay, first things first, homepage of driver. Now the fun thing is that we could initialize it here. All right, and then we have list header, driver find element, assert equals list header.text. So we could separate these things. We can have def. Okay, how do you do this usually? Let's first check it. So on main page, we would have, okay, so this groups actually an assert, a custom assert. This is a custom assert with this. Well, it's not really a custom assert because it doesn't have the assert, it's just verification. Page elements. Okay, so we want to have the page elements separately. To be honest, I don't get why we would want to have that. Base page element, set and get. And then I would have, which is the page element. So the page element, yeah, search text element locator equal Q. And this would be, says the tag driver, la la la. Get attribute self object owner. I mean, yeah, maybe, but I don't quite like this. I like to have these things more specific. So instead of doing this, I will just write first. No. Let's quickly look here. So what is the first thing that we have? The list header, okay? List header. Return self.driver, find element. I would rather have it like this. Find element by ID. Okay, and if we really want to, we can extract this as a first list header locator, right? But do we care that much? I'm not sure. Let's see. So homepage, we would replace this with homepage dot first list header and self assert equal the dot text. Actually it will be, yeah, it's a list header. No, first list header. Yeah, I think it's much better. First list header. List header dot text. Okay. First, let's rename this. Once again, I am moving a bit fast, so let's see if we broke anything. I'm fairly sure, because I'm experienced in making these changes, and I'm fairly sure that I didn't break things, but you never know, right? You need to, looks. Homepage for this header text 0. Okay. No, sorry. This is easy to fix. Always pass self. So I think that's the only problem, I hope. Let's see. Yeah, perfect. Cool. So we've done our first extraction. Now what I'd like to do is to replace this, replace, basically inline this, and do this. And now we should be able to run the tests as well. Cool. So we need to move to the next one, list element. Def list element self. To replace this with return. Driver find element. Yeah, and it's actually first list element. This is important because what I'd like to ensure, these types of naming, because I'd like to see. Okay, so now this is an interesting thing. Home page dot first list element. Delete until the end. Can we check something that is more specific about this? Well, let's see. Let's first run the tests. Once again, I'm fairly certain that, did I add the self? Maybe that. All right. Let's see. First list. Oh, this time I added self. So what was the problem? Driver find the. Right. It's self dot driver. Right, this should work. Professional programming. If I were in production, I would be more careful with these things, right? Particularly when I work with client code. But this is, I'm more relaxed now because it's like a fun exercise for me to figure these things out. First list li. So this is first list items. Okay. No. The first list items of self return self dot driver. So I'm more relaxed like now, and I'm just doing this for fun. I hope you're having fun with me as well. Okay, and now home page, first list items. Cool. Ooh. Because I don't have this anymore. Home page, first list items. Okay. We don't have. My God. Right. Too many changes at the same time. What did I say? Not a good idea. But we'll figure it out. So homepage dot first list items. First item of first list, right? And we'll just need to make sure that that comes back. And actually what I would need to have is the texts of everything. Because right now the only thing I have is the text of the first one. So what I would really like to see, first item of first list. I'd like to see the texts of all first list items. So the way to do that would be to map first list item dot text. I think we have. Do we have map in? I'm certain we have map in Python. Yeah, processing iterable without the loop. Cool. How to transform. All right. So I know the concept exists, but I don't always use this. I don't always use these constructs and I forget in the various programming languages how to use those. So let's see. So what would be items texts is map. Another thing that I'm wondering, where is map implemented? Do I need to import anything else? I guess we'll see. Okay. First list items, and then how do we pass the text function? I guess we can have a lambda item dot text, right? Oh, and the function is the first parameter and the second is, all right, gotcha. Items. And what I like to see now is a comparison between the collections. Self-assert list equal, perfect. List one, let's say items texts, and list two would be, actually I don't remember how lists, I think lists are like this in Python, and the only thing that I have is item one. Okay, so have we broken anything until now? No, we just added a new check. So if something goes wrong, it's because of that check. This is one very good trick. Whenever you make a change, try to make sure that what you have is Items, of course. First list items. Whenever you make a change and you write tests, make sure that you can, if something goes wrong, that you know precisely where it goes wrong. This is a very good development trick, because then it's easy to find things out. First sequence is not a list. Map. Okay, so what am I misunderstanding here? I'm definitely misunderstanding something. We have lambda item.text. Okay. And cool. I'm misunderstanding something. So what can we do? We can just make could make an experiment. So what is actually telling us? No. All right, I will just run the tests again. First sequence is not a list. It says it's a map object. Map object. Are we creating a map instead of... assert list equal items text, or do we have to... perhaps we need to call list on map. So squared, yeah, it uses list of squared. Map applies into every value. See maps returns an iterator. All right. I understand now. So we need to call list of this. Okay. Cool. Everything working now. So now we have replaced this second test with a more advanced verification. Oh, write this. No. Okay. And because we have done that, we can remove the second check. And I am thinking about actually moving this into here. Because what we have here would be self.first list items. And we could do return of this. First list items texts, and where are we? First list. Okay, so we could say first list items texts homepage dot first list items texts equals to this. Now this is a bit we could discuss a bit about this. Is this a good design? I mean, on one hand we've encapsulated this thing. On another hand, maybe the page object has extended a bit its main responsibilities. I don't know. For now it's just a convenience. It's easier to do things like this. I'm thinking for now it's a good idea. And now actually, you know what? Let's quickly run this test. It should pass now, because we are not using that variable anymore in any other places. Yeah, tests are okay. All right. I moved so fast I couldn't see if tests were okay. Cool. The next thing that I would like to do is to remove this test, because this test is actually redundant with this one. As long as we can get these items and we test the value, we also implicitly test the number, the count of items. So we don't need this anymore. And then the next one that we need to do is this first listed item button. Okay. Def first listed items button self colon return and here we need self dot driver. Okay. And if we replace this one with home page dot this, I think we can safely remove, oops, an indent. All right. There's some kind of an indent. Yeah. Remember that Python is sensitive to indent, which is actually a nice thing from my point of view. At first it sounded weird, but it's actually really nice because I don't like clutter in my code, and I find curly braces and all those braces, no matter which one we use, to be clutter. It's a personal thing, I understand, but it still gets quite annoying. Okay, so now, interesting thing. I think we can remove this. This can become this. And we can now run the test. Oh, assert name driver. Oopsie daisy. So we still have this thing, first list element. Do I care about the first list element? I mean, it has an ID and we are checking this ID. I don't care about the first list element. I don't care about the first list element anymore. So we can remove this part as well. I'm already checking that that element exists in the next test. So, right, so now we have this very interesting thing. And what this gives us, if you can see, it gives us the structure of the initial list. And the structure of the initial list is that we have a header, first list, we have some items already created, in this case 1, and we have an add item button. So what we can do here is to create a custom assert. And so let's do that. Self assert empty list displayed, empty list created. All right. And yeah, we need to Well, do we need to? The smallest point of, I mean, yeah, I'm thinking about coupling between the assert empty list created and the class. And I think that what it needs two things. It needs assert equal, assert list equal, assert equal. So it needs access to these things. And I think these things are implemented in a test class. And then it needs access to the driver. So now question is, do we pass in the driver or do we pass in the home page? I will pass the home page for now. And initialize it there. So home page. All right. But I'm thinking maybe we might want to create the home page in setup. Right. Because actually what we have here is self.homepage equals this. Come on. Come on, Alex, type things correctly. What are you doing? Oh boy. Let's write it. Driver. All right. You see, no matter how much experience you have, you'll still make some mistakes. Absolutely. Yeah, I forgot to make the change in the other. Let's do it like this. Make sure it works, and then, oh, still no. Okay, self.homepage. Oh my god. Are you kidding me? But still, so my mindset is always, look, I will make mistakes, obviously. I'm human. I may be tired. I may lose attention. There's tons of things that might happen. And so what I want to do is to make the smallest changes possible to advance the code, but at the same time, if something goes wrong, I can see that it went wrong. I can immediately point to what might have gone wrong, and it's very, very clear. Cool, let's do some more things. So you see how neatly this goes, right? Isn't this nice? You can go even further because these are parameters for this thing. So what we could do is to check that these parameters, to pass in these parameters, and then we'll have an assert list created or assert list exists for any such list, right? And that's great, that's awesome. But let's see first, because this will entail a bit more changes. Right now we have first list, first list, first list. So maybe we'll need some more things, but let's see. Cool. So what this means is, okay, we now have we have one test that was refactored completely using page objects. Git CI, okay, and the message is refactor test to use page object pattern and custom assert. So let me explain you a bit one thing, because this is interesting. This type of design allows us to make changes in the UI and in the behavior, and only have to change a few very localized things. So let's imagine, for example, that you don't have first list anymore, but you decided to be list-1 or something. Well, you only need to change here and wherever else you have first list, right? But it's a very localized change. You just need to change the locator. Let's imagine now that you decide to have no items in the first list. You decide to have an empty list without any items. Fine, no worries. This will be an empty list here. So the changes are extremely localized, and this test actually will remain valid. Because all this test says is, look, if I'm going to the home page and I'm testing the first list created, the list is empty, or whatever we mean by empty. And the assert defines what we mean by empty. This is a very powerful way of working, because your changes will be extremely localized. And that is great. Cool. So I'd like to refactor this one as well. So how do we do that? Okay, we found a way to refactor this, which is actually copy, paste, make sure not derf, okay. Make sure the indentation is right, this return self driver. All right. Oh, and we actually have it already. Cool. So removed one bit of duplication. So instead of doing this, now we can do, where are you? Home page dash first listed item button dot click. Okay, so now interesting thing. This is actually an action on the page. First, let's make sure that it works. Okay. Name home page is not right. My God. Self dot. No, Alex, don't double this. My God. Home page. Cool. Now. Okay. What's interesting now is that this is an action on a list in a page. So how about we extract this as an action in our home page? Click add item to first list self. Okay. Self. All right. Click add item to first list will be called here. Click. Oh my God. I was expecting this to autocomplete. But it doesn't, so we'll just copy this. I'm probably doing something wrong. By the way, I know if you are very good at Vim and you are watching me do this, I know that I'm not doing all the perfect moves here, right? I know that. I'd like to learn some more. but it's also a bit challenging. I mean, it requires some practice, right? Okay, first list items. Do we have first list items? First list items. Yes, we do have first list items. Precisely the same things because we probably copy pasted those. Who'd have thought? Programmers copy pasting things. My God. First list item. Okay. So this would become self home page first list items, assert length. You know what? We can actually do something better. Instead of asserting length, we can use assert list. Okay. No, don't do so many steps at once. Okay. Let's first do this. Good idea, always go in small steps. It seems slower, it's actually faster in the long term. Okay, add item first list. So here we had that problem, but I think this is solved by doing this. First list items and then do this again. And assert that this is 3 and clean up a bit. Let's run this and let's hope it will work. I can see one thing that might not work correctly. Oh, cool. It actually worked. Good job. All right. So now what I was saying is that we can use the same pattern as in assert empty list created, where we have assert list equal this. Blah, blah, blah. And this becomes self.homepage. And we replace this with this. And this becomes, I guess, item 1 and new item, I think. Well, we'll see. And just for the sake of it, I will, if the tests pass, I will replace that with another string and see the test failing. Because the tests keep passing, which means I'm either doing something really good or I'm not running the right things. Okay, we have a failure. Item 1, new item. Perfect. So cool. It even told us what we got wrong. So this is 1 and this is the second. Remove this, remove this. Item 1, new item, new item. And I can see a pattern building. Can you see the pattern building? So look, something interesting. If we add this as well, first list, home page, okay, so this will be self. Actually, no. So let's do it a bit differently. I don't need the driver anymore. I'll show you in a moment that I think there's a similarity between the two functions. The custom assert that will extract now and the custom assert that already exists. And I am almost certain that we can use something similar, right? We can remove some duplication. So we have this, and then we check this. But we might as well check that all these things exist, right? First list, so we have the header, we have the list of items, and we have add item. So instead of having only this, we could have this and this as well. And then our test becomes click assert list is, click assert list is. Let's see if I can. So how would I do this? I think I can duplicate this. Assert list is header text. Well, and that was actually, let's call it what it is. It's the list name. And list items texts and add item label. All right. And now let's say self.assert list is of self.homepage, homepage, and then we have first list. Okay, because this is the name. Then we have the items, which should be this. And then we would have add item, right? And we can replace this with this. And we can try to call it. And something doesn't work. First list new item. What? Ah, right. Because I'm not using. So this would be list name. This would be list items texts, and this would be add item label. Now things should work. Nice. Let's replace the second one with this, only now we have also new item. All right. Now the question is this a constant in home page, or is this the list name that we will change? And I mean the value. I think the value is part of the model. So I think this is actually our model for a list. Let's just quickly think about this. if we extract this in a kind of in a value class, okay, in a value type, so we'll have something like to-do list model, and that will have list get list name, return for now first list, get add item label of self. Okay, I think we are no. I mean, I don't like this because what I'd like to do is really to have a kind of a data structure for it. Oh well, I'm not sure for now. So let's quickly run the tests again, make sure that everything works. And we didn't change anything in the server-side code, but who knows? Let's quickly give it a try. Everything should work fine. After all, we are very interested in making this work. And yeah, I think we need to do a bit more refactoring here. But look at how nice this is now. We have empty list, we have add item, we have assert list is, and I think this, so, oh yeah, I wanted to do one more thing, which is to replace the call to assert empty list created with assert list is. In order to do that, we need to do only this. And I think that now we can quickly remove assert empty list created. And we now have much shorter code, which I really like. So let me quickly think. All right, what could we do? We could have that as a dictionary of some sort, right? Label for, well, list name first list, items, item 1, label add item. But then the thing is, this becomes a bit weird to create, but it's easier to pass things here. Okay, so there are a few more things to refactor, but overall, I kind of love it. I wasn't sure I should refactor it, but look at how nice it is now. And we have created a model for us that can work really nicely, and we can add more things easily. We got rid of the driver thingy from here. I mean, overall, pretty cool stuff, right? So that's it for now, but we'll see what we do next. See you soon.